Tell us about your changes that you've had to navigate as a starting point, and maybe pulling from that, tell us about your biggest lesson.
Okay, thanks. And thanks, Arma, for the invitation. I wish I could say I came here out of the goodness of my heart. The reality is, if I didn't come, she'd kill me, so... So, okay, I think the best way to do this is talk about two things I did when I transitioned from a CEO of First Bank to Governor of Central Bank. And I think these were also defining things for me in terms of lessons in leadership. The first thing is when I first got an inkling around February 2009 that I might be considered as one of the candidates for the Governor of Central Bank. It was in the middle of financial crisis. Yeah. And I was terrified because clearly I probably was going to be one of the shortest lasting central bank governors because everything was collapsing. Yeah. And I was like, well, why didn't this offer come when things were good? You know, why am I being tapped at a time when I knew, and I was a chief risk officer before I became a CEO, so I actually had a sense of the books of the banks. And I knew the system was literally on the brink of collapse. So imagine thinking that you're being offered this job that was really coming into a crisis. Yeah. Okay, so I took, I was lucky I had a British friend, an old Cambridge graduate, not Oxford, who was at the Nigerian High Commission, who was at the British High Commission in Nigeria, and who happened to have done her doctoral thesis on the Asian financial crisis. So I took 3 months with her, literally 3 months with her. And I said, look, if I'm appointed governor, I want to be ready. If I'm not appointed governor, fine, at least I'd have learned something. Yeah. So I read through her PhD thesis, I read through her papers. I would go to Abuja for a weekend, I would have literally tutorials on how the Asian central banks got out of the Asian financial crisis. By the time I was appointed central bank governor, I knew exactly what the Bank Negara Malaysia did. I knew that it was the model. I knew what steps we needed to take, okay? And that helped me a lot because I wasn't going there to learn. So what was the first lesson in leadership? By the time you're appointed, if you don't know what a job entails, don't take it. By the time you're appointed, it's too late, okay? Yeah, because too many people go for positions. You want to be the governor, you want to be the president. Then you think when you get there, you begin to find out, you know, you don't learn. If you're not ready for it, don't be there. It's not a place to learn. You learn, you always learn, but you're there to lead. Yes. Okay, so I knew I was going to deal with financial crisis. I had to be ready. 3 months of serious work so that by the time I walked into the central bank, I knew exactly what we needed to do to fix the banking system. This was the first lesson. The second thing was you have got to make sure you're not a general that leaves the troops behind. Because you couldn't take it for granted that everybody was on the same page with you. Yeah. While I was reading that work, the central bank was busy in denial, busy telling people that there's nothing wrong with the Nigerian financial system. You know. So you first of all had to deal with a situation where you're meeting with the same people who had said there was no problem. You had to get them to first of all accept that there was a problem. Yeah. Okay. So what did I do first? I got PricewaterhouseCoopers to come and do a presentation. But then I took the entire board of the central bank and the committee of Senate and House of Reps, and I said, let's go to Malaysia. So went on a board retreat. And I talked to the governor of Bank Negara Malaysia, Dr. Zeti Akhtar Aziz, well known, who was deputy governor of this Bank of Bank Negara during the Asian financial crisis, and who after that became governor of the central bank for about 11 years at that time. So we sat with her literally for about 6-8 hours from morning till afternoon, where she took us through what she did, where everybody had a chance to ask all the questions. Okay, and then that was when they were convinced that what I said I wanted to do was the right thing to do. But that 1 week in Malaysia gave me more mileage than I could have gotten in 1 year trying to convince them of why we needed to inject capital, why we had to fire CEOs, why we had to bring them before the courts, why we had to set up AMCON, what we needed to do, So 1 week, with the help of Accenture, and then that one day with Dr. Akhtar Aziz. So the two lessons for me, and this is what I've carried all my life. First, you want a job, please make sure you prepare for it and you're ready before you walk in. You're not going to learn how to do it when you get there. And second, when you get there, make sure that you take your team along with you. And you cannot do it alone. Well, for me, I think it's really about focus. Okay, so all my life, I always said in any role, what is the target? What is the objective? What am I there to achieve? Okay, so as a chief risk officer, it was always about reducing losses, just about lowest non-performing loans and basically remaining focused on that. When I got to the central bank, I looked at the Central Bank Act and said, okay, what is the central bank supposed to do? Deliver price stability, exchange rate stability, financial system stability, and an efficient payment system. That is what I was appointed to do. And I decided these were things I was going to focus on. It wasn't my job to please the politicians. It wasn't my job to be nice to the First Lady. It wasn't my job to, to do it. Yeah, I know. No, just as an aside, I had a story. One time I was told that my boss said I didn't like him. And I said, well, if the president wants love, he goes to the First Lady. If he wants low inflation, if he wants low inflation, he comes to the governor of central bank. Yeah. So that was what I was there to do. So for me, I think just being hard-nosed and focused on what you are supposed to achieve. Yeah. Okay, so and the way the central bank was structured was I had deputy governors, and I came in, inflation was like 16, 17%. I called the deputy governor of economic policy, Sarah Leda, and said, you know what? You are the governor for economic policy. You are to deliver inflation of less than 10%. That is your target. Okay? That's what I want. Just focus on that. Okay? The DG FSS, I want a stable financial system. I said, the two of you are in trouble because being an economist and a risk manager, I know this area very well. But there was the deputy governor of operations, and I never worked in operations in my life. And I said, you are to deliver an efficient payment system. I don't know how that is done. I know what I want. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give you a target, and then you just go and deliver and so on. And by simply keeping everyone focused and everyone knowing that they were going to be assessed based on that. Sarah had to deliver inflation single digit. By the time I left CBN, it was down to 7.8%. Okay. Kingsley had to fix the banking system. By the time I left, we had fixed the banks. Payment system, by the time we started transferring money on the phones, I remember the rest of the world had not even started, And so for me, it's about define. Now you'll fail on other things. People have expectations of what they think the central bank should do. Yeah. Okay, and they judge you by those. But so long as you know that this is what a central bank is supposed to deliver, and you do. So for me, my success was by the end of after 3 years in the CBN, I met the president and said, have you thought of a successor? And he said, what does that mean? I said, look, I don't think I'm going to go for a second term. So I said, I don't want a second term because all the targets that I have set for myself, I have achieved 100%. I'm not going to hang around for So the president knew 3 years into my term that I was not interested in the second term. It also gave me freedom because the only thing, when you're a central bank governor, you've got protection from being sacked and all that. The only thing the politicians have on you is the power to decide whether you have a second term or not. Yeah. And if you tell them up front that you don't even want it,
thank you.
You get that freedom and that independence, and they've just got to wait you out, after 5 years and point. And that I think was for me critical for success.
Thank you very much.
In the heart of the city where stories unfold, NjenjeMedia TV shining bright and bold, bringing news from the corners of the globe, connects us together, no matter